Hey there everyone, welcome back to Utility Sports after a very successful trade deadline with a ton of moves, a flurry of huge trades including a massive game-breaking Luka Doncic trade earlier in the week and then a flurry of salary dumps and a whole bunch of other things. In those live streams, you guys obviously hopefully had a great time. If you didn't get to catch that, I'm sorry, but you get to be here for this video and I am extremely excited to break down my NBA trade deadline winners and losers in this one. Again, welcome back to Utility Sports. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you guys do enjoy the content here. And then for the video preview, just a little bit of a quick breakdown what this video is going to entail. For the winners section, again, this could either be a team or a player, and it's going to be focused on positioning, teams that put themselves in the best position moving forward, teams that help themselves. Now, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to win the NBA championship this season, but they're in a pretty good spot overall for the future or for this season if they are a contending team. And then for losers, teams that either, in my opinion, lost value on trades, or B, did not define a clear pathway moving forward, and then also C, if it's a players who had their situation impacted pretty negatively. So we're going to talk about all of that in today's video. Now, if your team does not show up in this video and you want to know what I think about them, just leave a comment down below and I will answer all of the questions about your favorite team. Let me know who you want to know about and I will give you my overall thoughts on them at the trade deadline. But winner number one here is Jimmy Butler. Now, I'm not saying the Golden State Warriors. There is a clear differentiation there. I did not love this trade for Golden State. I did not love the 2-year, $121 million extension for Jimmy Butler. But if I was his agent or if I was Jimmy Butler myself, oh my goodness, would I be over the moon right now. He successfully did it again. Forced his way out of a situation he didn't want to be in. Found a new city, a coastal city on to boot here in the Bay Area. And Golden State specifically, I think, is a good landing spot for him when it comes to the backstages of his career. He's now there with Stephen Curry. He's there with Draymond Green. They do have some semblance of a big three, and he's gotten met with a huge, massive payday. Again, Jimmy Butler is an expert savant when it comes to navigating ways out of a certain city, navigating his way to where he wants to go. Ultimately, Golden State was one of his 4 preferred destinations overall. He finds himself now in Golden State. I think extremely happy not only to have a ton of money committed to him over the next 2 years, which will make him a top 5 paid player each season of those 2 years at roughly $60 million annually. But the overall situation I don't think could be much better for him. He's on a team that has championship pedigree, of course, in the past. He's now in a position where he's going to be relied on pretty heavily as a two-way player. His scoring is going to look pretty good. I think his playmaking next to Steph Curry could be accentuated in a positive way. Now, do I have confidence that the Warriors are going to be a true contender here? No, I don't, which is why I don't love this trade for the Warriors. I think they did give up a good deal of stuff in this, and honestly, I'm finding myself a little hesitant on being super excited about Golden State, but I think Jimmy Butler in Golden State should be a dream outcome for him, especially with that extension in place now overall. The San Antonio Spurs are another huge winner. Not only did they walk out of the overall trade deadline with De'Aaron Fox at a kind of fraction of the cost with Chicago's involvement there, they were able to appease Sacramento by the Kings getting Zach LaVine. I did like the Kings' overall trade deadline. They won't be listed in this video as a winner or loser, but I do think walking out with Jake LaRavia and Zach LaVine was pretty good. But for San Antonio, winning this trade deadline was twofold. Not only was it about improving this team, finding the franchise point guard next to Victor Wembanyama long-term, which is what I think they did here with De'Aaron Fox at the deadline this year, but now at the deadline here, after a series of Hawks moves where they kind of changed their pieces around. They traded DeAndre Hunter to Cleveland. They traded Bogdan Bogdanovic to LA. They got back Terrence Mann. They got back some other salaries in these deals. Trae Young now finds himself maybe a little disgruntled and unsure about his future in Atlanta. And if you're a Spurs fan, not only did the Hawks get a little bit worse this year, which you own their pick in 2025, you also own a pick swap in 2026 and the Hawks unprotected first in 2027. So while it's also kind of a benefit that you've improved your team and you're kind of growing and exponentially improving your roster, you also might be getting the benefits here of Atlanta having to answer some really difficult questions over the next 12 to 24 months of who's going to be on their roster. At the offseason, when we get there, will Trae Young still be in Atlanta 6 months from now? That's a huge question. We don't know. And for San Antonio, they are a huge winner as a result of this. They were able to navigate the De'Aaron Fox trade sweepstakes while media members were throwing out the, multiple firsts, Stephon Castle, Jeremy Sohan, this, that, and the other thing. You guys know I maintained a position saying you can't afford to give all that stuff up. It needs to be some form of draft compensation, and that's it, and salary, or it needs to be a young build-around player like a Stephon Castle with very limited to almost no draft capital in it. San Antonio was able to navigate these trade discussions like that, returning some flexibility to Chicago, which I thought was an okay part of the deal for San Antonio anyway, because the Bulls, if they would have just decided to blow it up and tank anyway, would have found themselves maybe not getting those picks outright to begin with. So overall, this all worked out extremely well for the Spurs. I feel very, very happy about where they're currently at. If you're a Spurs fan, you should be over the moon right now with how this trade deadline went, not only for your current team moving forward, getting a lot better with De'Aaron Fox, but also for your future as well when it comes to those draft picks that you have unprotected from Atlanta in 2025, 2026 as a swap option, and then 2027 as well unprotected. Winner number 3, I think the most obvious one on the entire list here, the Los Angeles Lakers. Luka Doncic was the crown jewel of the trade deadline, and it wasn't even remotely close. De'Aaron Fox, all-star caliber player. He's not Luka Doncic. I'm talking about a 5-time first-team All-NBA for a 25-year-old. He will be 26 in a few weeks, but he is right now the player who he was traded on Saturday. I'm still utterly shocked he was dealt. I just cannot believe it. It is a trade that consumes me. I am a Dallas Mavericks fan. I cannot believe it. If you are a Los Angeles Lakers fan, this is the dream. This is the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar trade. Except this time, the player didn't force his way there. Luka was not asking to go play with LeBron James. Luka was not forcing his way to LA in the way that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar did many, many moons ago. The Lakers, a team that I thought had a ton of questions long-term about their future. They owed that 2027 first to Utah. LeBron James is 40 years old. Anthony Davis has never really been a true 1A championship caliber player, has never been out of the first round without LeBron James. That might change this year. We'll see. And it's not to discredit Anthony Davis as a player. He's a tremendous player. Lakers fans, you know that. Mavericks fans who are now rooting for Anthony Davis, you know that as well. So this isn't to diminish Anthony Davis, but this is about the long-term direction and franchise trajectory of the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers were entering what would have been kind of a dark or scary era, not knowing what their future held, to now having a guy who has been a 5-time All-NBA first-team member in 6 seasons. He won't make it this year because of injuries, but he is a player that is a core central build-around piece. You also went out and got Mark Williams. It's a big gamble, but I think building around Luka Doncic, at the end of the day, whatever other moves the Lakers made this trade deadline, walking out of this deadline with Luka Doncic, a player that all other 28 teams had no idea was even available, is a massive, incredible home run swing. Rob Pelinka, I have not been afraid in the past to, kind of say the things I don't think he does very well. He handled this brilliantly. He kept it wraps. No one knew anything about it until the trade was done. It was too late. The deal happened. Dallas looks like a fool. Los Angeles looks out like the victors in the 2025 NBA trade deadline. When it comes to loser number 1, you're not going to be surprised here to see the Dallas Mavericks on the graphic or the Phoenix Suns. I have been harsh on both of these two teams, specifically Dallas trading away a 25-year-old 5-time All-NBA first team. It's kind of the flip side here of what I just got done talking about with Los Angeles. Well, listen, I think the Mavericks are a very good team. They strike me right now as an incompetent franchise. They traded away their core building stone piece, the cornerstone of their organization, who just led them to an NBA Finals. And then the Phoenix Suns, kind of in a different way. These two teams just strike me as incompetent organizations. Phoenix, obviously, the Bradley Beal trade. This all stems back from that, trading for a player with a no-trade clause and an absolute albatross contract. Phoenix now finds themselves in a situation where they couldn't pull off a trade for Jimmy Butler. They couldn't make anything happen. Now they have a disgruntled superstar in Kevin Durant. They have to deal with that problem. Dallas, not only did they trade Luka Doncic, after trading him, they tried to justify their reasonings and now have probably told the whole league, hey, you might not want to play for us because if you do, we're going to bash the hell out of you the moment you leave. That's exactly what the Mavericks have done here. The Mavericks have looked like a classless organization since trading Luka Doncic. They have done nothing but utterly, disrespect him. And I think that's going to come back to bite them pretty significantly in a bad way. And if you're a Phoenix Suns fan, I think, you're disappointed. You didn't get anything done. You had to trade your 2031 first-round draft pick to even try and find a way to salary dump Yusuf Nurkic. While you did get other draft capital, you still have limitations now You didn't get out of the second apron. There are some serious flaws with this team, and now you're facing the likelihood of having to trade Kevin Durant out this offseason. So Phoenix, without owning their future draft picks, we'll see if Houston comes calling, which I expect them to do in the offseason. And we'll see if Dallas here, specifically another team, 2027 through 2030, do not own their own first-round picks. These two teams are in serious danger long-term. Now, at least Dallas has a very good roster right now. The Mavericks are significantly better than the Phoenix Suns. I have to say that. I do need to qualify that. There is a vast difference between these two teams in terms of talent and roster fit. The Mavericks are good. The Phoenix Suns are not. But I think with their moves at this trade deadline and before, for Phoenix especially, these two teams just both reek of incompetencies up and down from the very top, beginning in Dallas with Nico Harrison, and beginning in Phoenix with Matt Ishbia at the very top and the very head of the snake as the owner there of the Phoenix Suns. My loser number 2 is the Toronto Raptors. If you were in my live stream when the Brandon Ingram trade happened, you know I was not a huge fan of the Brandon Ingram trade for Toronto, and there's plenty of reasons why. The first one being the long-term plan here for Toronto. And I know people are going to tell me, well, Brandon Ingram's really good. It only cost us 1 first-round pick. I completely agree. Brandon Ingram is a very good player. But Masai Ujiri continues to have this same problem. When you go for value, when you target a player solely for the sake of value, yes, you can get a former All-Star for 1 first-round pick and he's only 27 years old, this, that, or other reason. I don't care. The entire point of being the GM of an NBA franchise is to do what? Is it to get good players who put up 20 points per game and you don't win anything? Or is it to win games and win playoff series and try and contend for a championship? What is the point of a GM? Is it to build a good team or to get one good player? The answer is to build a good team. Toronto continues to fail to do this. They sacrificed some of their extra flexibility that they had from the Pascal Siakam trade. I just want to point out 2 of the first-round picks they got for Pascal Siakam were now rerouted for Brandon Ingram, and one of them for Kelly Olynyk and Ochai Agbaji. Listen, I like Agbaji as a young player. Olynyk just now got traded. The Raptors continue to do this, where they trade half their stuff for something good, and then they sell some of their stuff. I like the Davion Mitchell. The trade value here is not the problem. I do think Toronto got a good value trade. The issue I have here is Toronto is not any closer to winning a playoff series with Scottie Barnes now than they were a week ago, and that is a problem. You cannot trade draft pick capital out the door and get worse, or not improve, your draft or your winning possibilities around your franchise player moving forward. If Scottie Barnes wants to win a playoff series, I'm not sure it's going to happen in Toronto. Point blank. I'm sorry to say it. And Raptors fans, I don't want you to be mad at me. I want the Raptors to be a great team. And this is what frustrates me about Masai Ujiri. I think he's a very smart guy. I think he clearly has a very bright head on his shoulders when it comes to making decisions and kind of looking at value. But he hasn't built a team. RJ Barrett, Brandon Ingram, Scottie Barnes, Emmanuel Quickley, Jakob Poeltl, they don't fit together. That collection of 5 players is going to be making over $140 million next year if the Raptors extend Brandon Ingram. I'm not even worried about Ingram leaving. I'm worried about Ingram staying. That 5-man unit, that 5-man starting lineup might be almost as expensive as the Denver Nuggets starting lineup. You see the differences, you see the flaws and the problems. That's why I'm really, really concerned about the Toronto Raptors moving forward. And last but not least, the Atlanta Hawks. I think overall, I didn't mind any of their deals. I didn't mind the DeAndre Hunter trade, although the pick swaps they got back in return for DeAndre Hunter were really not that promising. But overall, what's really going on here for Atlanta is a deeper problem where Trae Young is becoming disgruntled. And with trading out pieces that they had, I didn't mind it. But when you owe your draft picks, and we talked about this in the segment covering the San Antonio Spurs, you don't have your own draft flexibility, you don't have your own draft picks. Rebuilding this team on the fly is kind of a challenge, especially if you're not bringing in win-now players around Trae Young who fit Trae Young. Again, like I talked about with Toronto, Atlanta has not built their team around fit as well as they should have. One of their best moves for fit was Clint Capella. I think they found a decent amount of team success with Clint Capella over the duration of time he's been in Atlanta, but then they went and made a DeJounte Murray trade. There's been moments here where Atlanta has overlooked fit, they have overlooked their team congruency, and as a result of that, they have not reached the heights that they are capable of reaching, and we saw Trae Young be good enough to lead a team to a conference finals. Now, is Trae Young a true 1A player? Probably not. I think he's closer to a 1B player. But when you have a 1B player, you should be looking at putting a lot of the pieces around him to build a team that fits around that kind of player. Atlanta has continued to fail to do that, and it might ultimately cost them Trae Young long term. Again, I didn't individually hate any of their specific trades at the deadline as much. I think the Bogdanovich one was fine. They stayed second round pick neutral at the trade deadline for the most part, except for making the one salary dump to Houston. I didn't mind that either, but with Atlanta, I think the overall picture here is they're on the verge of losing Trae Young, and now their biggest homework to do for the offseason is figuring out what that trade's going to look like, who they're going to trade Trae Young to, and what kind of package they can get back to actually build a team that makes sense on paper and on the court, something they have failed to do over the last 3 or 4 years now in Atlanta with Landry Fields. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. Again, if you want to know about a specific team, comment at me. I will respond to all of those comments, answering your questions about what I thought. All in all, it was a very fun trade deadline. Appreciate all of you who are supporting me in the live streams and watching these videos. Thanks again so much for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the very next Utility Sports video.